Hillary Clinton had some interesting words to describe Associate Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas in an interview with Gayle King. She said this.
Justice Thomas has sort of floated that out there about contraceptive rights,
yes,
contraception, and about same-sex marriages. But other justices have pushed back to say, no, he's really sort of on his own with that.
Well,
Don't believe that?
Well, he may be on his own, but he's signaling, as he often did. You know, I went to law school with him. Mm-hmm. He's been a person of grievance for as long as I've known him. Resentment, grievance, anger. And he has signaled in the past to lower courts, to state legislatures, to find cases, pass laws, get them up. I may not win the first, the second, or the third time, but we're going to keep at it.
So you're saying people pay attention to
yes,
this?
The people he is speaking to, which is the, right-wing, very conservative judges and justices and state legislatures. And the thing that there's so many things about it that are deeply distressing, but women are going to die, Gayle. Women will die.
Yeah, I cannot wait to blow up people that I went to law school with when they're on the Supreme Court and say
resentment, grievance.
Never got salad at the cafeteria. Not sure how long they're going to last on the bench. No, but look, I mean, part of the problem here.
That was not I didn't think that was a classy way to describe his opposition to. He does not think that the Constitution mandates or the Constitution prohibits state legislatures from weighing in on these issues. That's not to say contraception should be banned or gay marriage should be banned or even abortion should be banned. He just thinks the Constitution doesn't take those issues out of the states. You may disagree with that. That is not formed because of anger or resentment.
But to be clear, Robby, when you say it doesn't mean that contraception should be banned, same-sex marriage should be banned, the reason that the Supreme Court ever weighed in on those issues because contraceptions were in fact banned, right. Gay sex was in fact banned, gay marriage was in fact banned.
He's saying it is permissible for state legislatures to ban those things, not necessarily that it's advisable,
right,
but that they can. Just like the government can ban a bunch of other things.
Except here's the issue. Clarence Thomas's politics are not obscure, although I do think it's right to point to the fact that he and many other justices did, I think, lie pretty outright about what their, how much they would rely on settled precedent, including Roe v. Wade, in order to get into the Supreme Court. They were asked repeatedly by Democratic lawmakers about whether or not they respected Roe v. Wade as precedent. And everybody who's on that bench right now, everyone who was confirmed by the Democrats in the Senate, said that they did. Now, they
kind of evasively danced around it in the non-committal way that people usually participate in those hearings, which is why they're wasting time.
It's not, they don't say, I love Roe v. Wade, but they say, it's settled precedent, and I don't expect it'll be an issue. It's settled precedent and settled precedent and settled precedent.
But we've had settled precedents that were bad that get overturned. So
right, but they didn't say that. They didn't say it's settled precedent, but I think it deserves another look, which would have been an honest perspective for 5 or 6 of the judges. This is what has happened. So, I think actually saying that Clarence Thomas is what did he say? A man of grievance is
anger,
a pretty nice
resentment, grievance.
A pretty nice way of going about it. And here's why. At the
Hillary
end of the
Clinton
day,
is a figure of anger, resentment, and grievance.
110%. But 2 wrongs don't make it right. Yale law produces a lot of people that I don't particularly
tell us about it. No, you're Harvard Law, not Yale Law, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Better class. No, I'm just kidding. It's all a mess. And then part of the problem is that everybody is in one big club and you're not a part of it. But the issue here is that Clarence Thomas seemed to open the door to the specific rights being overturned. Conveniently, those privacy rights that have been found in the Constitution by previous courts, all except the one that most implicates him in his own personal life, same-sex marriage. Yeah, and people have said that this is not an accident.
You mean
interracial marriage? Yeah, Loving v. Virginia.
Right. Olayemi talked about this a lot yesterday. Yep.
Yeah, and it's difficult to make heads or tail of that without saying that this is a man who, again, is married to someone who has come under the microscope recently because of her involvement in 1-6. She has been a very openly partisan and political figure. Clarence Thomas and the other conservative justices have been very open about their relationship with the Federalist Society and how they have a very specific political agenda. So the idea that we are just now talking about the court being politicized and, oh my goodness, are people pushing their own religious beliefs and all these kinds of things. FedSoc was founded 40 years ago now with this express purpose of getting to
returning these political questions to democratic accountability in the form of state legislatures and the National Congress.
And we have a constitution because we believe as a country that some rights are inalienable. There are people who wanted to return the right to own slaves to the states, and that's why we had a civil war. A civil war that was not constitutional. Dred Scott was a constitutional decision that, a Supreme Court decision that Lincoln said, never mind, we're not doing that, and we fought a war about it. And so eventually,
but we needed a new rule written into the Constitution to cover it. Because it unfortunately was, we wanted to take that away from what Democratic people decide, so we have the rule written there so no one can confuse it.
Right, after we fought the bloodiest war in American history. Right. So the question is this: we have all of these undemocratic bulwarks against actually changing our Constitution. It's very difficult to do, and it's even more difficult to do over time. Realistically speaking, we are at loggerheads because we have these judges who are insisting that not just what the Founding Fathers said, not just constitutional intent is being reviewed, but 16th century jurisprudence is being looked at in the context of this decision.
The way to not have bloody, miserable conflict over these kinds of questions is to let people once again decide different things for their state or for their community.
Robby, you have
and accept that I'm not going to always like what they're going to decide, and you have to live elsewhere.
We have to reckon with this central point. It is of course true that not everything that I personally believe should be a constitutional right, a basic human right and protection as an American citizen, is literally written in the Constitution. That is why so much stuff has been read into the Constitution, including expansive gun rights that are nowhere in the Second Amendment. I'm sorry.
The Constitution is much louder on gun rights than it is on privacy.
Wait a minute, Robby. Let me just finish this. There were literally no bullets at the time of the founding. We have read into a well-regulated militia a wide panoply of rights, and I'm not even arguing against that right now in this moment. I'm drawing the contrast. If you are willing to read into the right to have an AK-47 and to basically sit up on your roof with looking through your scope, gunning down your neighbors as a right to defend yourself and all of the stuff that we have today, fine. But as a moral measure, as a society, we have to be having a conversation about whether or not we think it should be up to, and you're a libertarian, random legislators across the country to infringe upon the relationship between a woman and her doctor, and whether or not that's an inviolable human right. Should a woman who has an ectopic pregnancy, who realizes a baby isn't viable at the end of her pregnancy, as just happened to a woman in one of these states with the trigger law,
I looked into that.
Have to die.
Those are
should rape and incest.
The ectopic are in all of the abortion laws going into that is exempted.
Well, there was at least one instance where a woman's doctor consulted for 9 hours with a lawyer before he would operate on her because of the ambiguity that this ruling has created, putting her life at jeopardy. So besides what's in the Constitution, I wish conservatives be willing to have a different kinds of question. Do you think it should be a human right for women should be able to make those kind of independent medical decisions? And if so, why are you fighting the fact that many wise justices just a few decades ago read that right into the Constitution because it's consistent with the privacy rights that they saw in the 14th Amendment and elsewhere in the Constitution?
Look, I would take a deal for universal. It devolves to the individual. It's your choice for all of for contraception, abortion, gun rights, whether you get vaccinated, whether you have to do any of all of it.
Yes.
Fine, but it's not. There would have to be a rule. I would support a rule that said that, but that's not the way it is. The way it is now is that certain things. There's a couple of free speech, Second Amendment, a couple other things. A couple other things I wish should be enforced differently on search and seizure, that kind of stuff. But we have this list of specific rights.
Anymore.
We have these specific rights, and then other contentious political stuff is up for debate and discussion among state officials, some federal officials, et cetera, in the democratic process. I don't love that because there are things that are going to be infringed upon that I wish were not infringed upon, but that's just the system. That it's for all those things not explicitly spelled out.
Here's what I'm getting at, though. When conservatives say, let the states decide, they say that like it's a neutral, morally, non-morally implicated statement. Okay, you can say that that's obviously true, but it's akin to saying, well, sometimes if you're poor and your parents can't feed you, the kids die. You know, people just have to really recognize that it is not a neutral statement to say we're going to throw things to the states. Throwing issues to the states has, since the beginning of this country, been a way to get around what many people believe should be basic, fundamental, human rights-based protections. It has been that way since slavery. And I don't mean this as a gotcha. I know that some conservatives feel like everyone's always trying to bring up slavery as a gotcha.
Let's have a small, ineffectual government that does not and cannot infringe on people's rights whatsoever because it has virtually no powers given to it. That's what we had at the start, and that's what I'd be fine having again. But progressives don't want that because they want a powerful federal government to do all sorts of stuff, and then you get violation of categories of people's rights, and you get democratic accountability for it.
Stop playing these games as a community and stop trying to score points and win over each other and say, you know what, we live in a society, we live in a country, I respect the rights of my fellow Americans. I never have and never will advocate for anybody to lose their Second Amendment rights. Never have, never will. But that same respect isn't shown for other rights that have been found by the Supreme Court, that we said we used to respect, that have been found by the Supreme Court as existing in the Constitution. And until people are very serious about making it easier to have constitutional conventions and actually amend the Constitution, saying things should just be thrown to the states without reckoning seriously with the moral implications of saying that certain kinds of rights are up to a coin flip, and there should be no protection for the rights of people who have been historically marginalized and targeted by the state, I think should be the concern for anybody who considers themselves to be a libertarian.
Then I want it all gone. That you can hold the government that we've shrunk down, small enough to drown in the bathtub. We can hold it down together, and then we can have all the rights that we might want, and that's got to be the deal. Or else it's going to be decided through the democratic process.
Well, I'm sure this isn't a conversation that's going anywhere anytime soon.
I'm sure we'll have it again.
And
maybe tomorrow, maybe next week.
And we will also be having more Rising for you after this.